Hello, fictional. Welcome to the Fiction Series X. Today we are gonna see, what if Issei was the potentially freezing and got harem? Part 1. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Issei slowly opened his eyes, it was not yet dark, so he guessed he had only been sleeping for around about a few hours. Sat up from where he was within the boat he had made, his jutsu had worn off so it was now visible to others. He now stood up and felt that the boat was no longer moving, in fact it was still, completely still. Well, that's not suspicious at all. He gave a very indifferent yawn and then created a wood clone of himself. You go outside and see what is going on, if there is a bunch of people out there get me, unless they attack you. The wood clone gave him a nod. Issei knew that he could get intel from it without needing it to return or disappear. He now sat back as his wood clone went outside to see what was the reason the ship was no longer moving. The wood clone emerged from the ship to see that it was indeed on land, it was also on that island that he had first appeared on. What he saw was an army of women in front of him, all bearing some kind of weapon at him. Issei at this moment closed his eyes and said well shit. At this point he made the wood clone be absorbed back into the boat, he knew he had to go out there himself. At this point Issei just in case deactivated his Sharingan, in case they thought he was a monster and tried to kill him. He met the same sight that the wood clone had met, only this time they were all a little bit taken aback. Perhaps I should not have allowed the wood clone to be summoned back into the boat. It was at this point he saw that same girl who kept her eyes near close, so you found me Brock, what now? She was only slightly annoyed, but she did not speak to him, next to her stood a girl with black hair, she had her eyes wide open. Issei saw that most of them wore that strange purple uniform, if they were going to fight him, anyone who was in the area would see their panties. Wow, they must have like zero level of shame to try to fight people in that. He did not say this out loud, due to the fact that he really could not be bothered to fight them right now. He noticed a lady in a nun-like outfit, he also noticed that the others gave way to her when she walked. She was now in front of the other girls, Issei could tell that she was no child. My apologies for earlier, we found your boat and assumed you were on it. So she must be the one in charge, well of this at any rate. Issei thought this as he raised an eyebrow and said, you didn't cut my throat while I slept so we're straight. To this she answered I would not be so sure of that, we could not find you on that boat of yours. It was at this moment that Issei recalled out he had hidden himself within the boat's deck. We believe that you created that boat while you were fleeing from the school, is that true? To this Issei said what Madara had taught him since he had met the man. Believe what you want, if it is true or false is of no concern to me. You respond so nonchalantly, yet I believe that each response of yours is calculated for the situation you're in. To this Issei gave a shrug and said believe what you want. To this the nun lady then said I believe you are not our enemy though if what you did before showed to us you are not human. To this Issei sighed and said I am human, I am just more fine-tuned than most. This raised a few voices in the crowd behind her. Issei could tell that they were not pleased at what he had said. I hate to be so direct, but why are you here? Issei for a few moments contemplated lying, but then her remembered no matter how honest you are, if a person cannot bring themselves to believe what you say they will no believe it. So Issei chose to tell them the truth. My name is Issei, I came here from another world because the red dragon to dreams wanted someone to help stop the apocalypse from occurring. The blank stares he got from about all but the nun lady told him they could not believe what he just said. The nun lady kept and the squint-eyed girl kept their composure. The nun lady asked him is that true? He could see that she was skeptical so all he said was believe what you want. To this she then asked what is it that you believe? Issei raised an eyebrow, then got into the speech he had made in case any back in his home, asked if he believe about God. What is a man to a mob, what is a mob to a king, what is a king to a god, what is a god to a non-believe, who doesn't believe in anything? He could see that he caught them all off guard with this, it pleased him. After about a minute the nun lady said so you are the non-believer then? To this Issei said no I am not, but believe what you want. She now looked at Issei and said Mr. Issei, I believe you said your name was, how would you feel about a little demonstration of your skill to us? To this Issei said is there a reason to why I should humor you? To this the nun lady said if not you will have to face all the Pandora behind me. I'll go with option 2, oh and please try to kill me, that way when you fail I can mock you. The nun lady took a step back, she had not intended him to go for this option. What are you surprised? Well if you don't want to I won't, but if you all want to go, that's fine by me. At this all of these so-called Pandora began to shake in rage and narrow their eyes, as well as grit their teeth. But then a voice rang out, it was that squint-eyes girl again. I will take him on, if that is alright with you Madam Headmistress. She still had that smile on her face, and Issei felt an inhuman power within her. Why do I get the feeling that you keep your eyelids lowered for a reason? She did not look taken aback and she still had the smile on. The nun lady, or rather headmistress, gave her a nod. The other Pandora backed off as the smiling girl approached him. "Do try to keep the collateral damage to a minimum." Issei did not take his eyes off his opponent but replied to the nun lady, "You should start running." At that, the smiling girl said, "I am Chiffon Fairchild, people call me the smiling monster, I will be your opponent." Issei noted she was waiting for him to speak, so he did. "I am Issei Haidu, Madara's disciple." She did not know what to make of that, and Issei noticed that she was able to hold the gauntlets on her arms with little to no effort. She suddenly launched an attack that was intended for his face. Issei, in response, felt his own arm take on that scaly form as he raised it to block the incoming attack. But in fact, he was not blocking the attack, he was marking her. As he made contact with her gauntlet, he spun her body around to dampen the blow. She saw what he did and hit him with the second gauntlet, but she found she hit thin air. Issei had used his flying thunder god technique to transport him on top of her left arm. She was able to feel his weight on her and tried to throw him off. This was exactly what he desired and got sent flying high into the air. Making two hand signs, he said, "Fire style, great fire annihilation jutsu." A massive wave of fire came forth from his mouth and towards the girl below. Issei stopped after about 5 seconds because he knew he had not hit his target. "Damn it, I will have to use the Sharingan to keep track of her." Doing just that, Issei noticed that she had managed to jump up to where he was. Issei in this moment clasped his hands together in the sign of the tiger, horse, tiger and snake and used wood relays, great forest. Though he did not say the latter words, a massive tree trunk burst forth from his chest and collided with Chiffon's torso. Issei noticed and felt that he had not hit her, no, it was just an after image. She was running up the tree trunk and was going to punch him in the face. Issei at this moment made half the sign of the snake with one hand, causing more tree trunks to split and target Chiffon. Issei noticed that she was able to gracefully dodge all of them, though Issei smiled as she landed right in front of him and raised her gauntlet. As they were falling, Issei broke of his connection to his attack. This allowed him to push off away from Chiffon. In the few moments he had before he would be attacked next, he had to think. At this moment they believed that I am a far combatant, guess I will need Susanoo. He was able to plan the perfect moment based on the girl's current attack pattern. Sharingan, what would I do without you? He did not wish to know that answer. Chiffon had to admit he had some freakish abilities, but she did as well. She jumped up to land her first real blow on him. She knew that he had been testing her and she had been testing him, but now the time of testing was over. She had to launch a defining attack on him and show him that her title was not for show only. She was now face to face with him. She was a little higher than him since they were falling and she had jumped up. She was about to hit him with her right arm when she felt something smash her down. She saw a flash of red and noticed for the first time that his eyes had changed color. She also noticed that he was surrounded by some red field. Also, this field had spawned a skeleton arm with a hand. Issei at this point was also falling, but he had survived higher heights. At this point he noticed that the girl he had been fighting was just about recovering her poster, but was too close to the ground. Issei at this point made his Susanoo sprout his signature dragon wings as well as another arm and sweep down and catch her. Issei then landed with a thud and noticed that the other girls must have destroyed the great forest attack before it hit the ground. He now looked to Chiffon, who was struggling in his grip. She was trying to break out, now he had to admire that, though Madara wouldn't. "You've lost, admit defeat and I will let you go, don't and you will burn." She did not look the time to concede to anyone and Issei was ready to hear her reply when the nun lady's voice rang out. "I would ask that you put my student down." Issei turned his head to see her, his Susanoo did not move. He did, much to the other girl's shock. "Why should I? Victory is mine. Is she precious to you, or is she a special case? Never mind, that is not for me to know." He put her down and released his Susanoo and his Sharingan, then looked to the nun lady, "You did not give me your name." He also sealed his dragon-like arm just in case. He wore a long-sleeved shirt, so only the very perceptive would have noticed it. She gave a polite bow. "Forgive me, I am Sister Margaret, I am the headmistress of West Genetics." Issei raised his eyebrow, then decided to say, "Okay, that's better, can I ask you one thing?" To this, Sister Margaret raised her eyebrow and asked, "Oh, and what is that?" "I will answer what I am allowed to." That was what Issei wanted to hear. There were people above her, so this meant she was not the boss. "Actually, you just did, never mind that." The girl who had called herself Chiffon Fairchild now stood up. "You are really strong as well as smart, luring me into believe you were a far combatant." To this, Issei said, "I am well-rounded, thank you, in all forms of combat, though there are some who I pale in comparison to." She now walked back to the other girls who now looked rather afraid of Issei. Issei now saw a single man in the crowd. He looked rather old. He noticed that this man was observing him and frowning, not that he disliked Issei, but he disliked what he had done. He also noted that he must have seen his eyes change, though most of the others had not. Right now Chiffon as well as the sister Margaret and him may have been the only ones to see his Sharingan. So what now, are more of you going to fight me, or am I going to be let be? To this the old man came forward and spoke, no, fighting you is pointless, you have proven that, if you care to come with me to the school, I can speak with you about the threat that faces our world. Issei could tell that this man was a schemer, he could also tell he must have held a great amount of respect because everyone stepped back for him. Issei did not answer him, he knew this man had more than enough brains to guess why. I am Deno Aoi. The man raised his hand to shake that of Issei's. Issei in turn took the hand and shook it, I am Issei Haidu. Deno now gave a nod to Sister Margaret who in turn returned on to him. Come with me, I can inform you of the threat that this world faces. Issei did not like this man, but he felt that he best go with him for now. This man, why do I feel that not many people could outdo his intellect? Inside a building within West Genetics. Issei was within a building of no real description. Before him sitting at a desk was Deno Aoi. So there are other humans out among the stars then? Issei'd reply to this, more like an alternate reality for you. Issei could tell that this man wished him to keep guessing his motives, and Issei knew how to do the same. Tell me Issei Haidu, do you believe in God? To this Issei said, well, and if you take into the fact that I met the Archangel Michael, you could say I believe he exists, but I do not worship him. Deno Aoi raised an eyebrow and said, you have met the Archangel, what do you mean? Issei in turn smiled at him and said, what is mine, you can speculate on what I said. It was clear that this was able to annoy the man to a certain degree, though many would not have been able to see it. So who taught you to be like this, who taught you to create wood from your body? Issei knew two things about life, one, it was very unfair to never give to those who do not give to you. A man did, well you would call him a monster, but a man did. This caused Deno Aoi to narrow his eyes at Issei. Let me guess, he was a very intelligent man. To this Issei said that would not begin to describe him. Issei was giving information, but only a little, enough to piss off anyone. I see, so you are not going to cooperate with me? To this Issei raised an eyebrow and said, the definition of that word means working together, or at least it was last time I checked. Deno Aoi must have known that Issei was not going to give him anything unless he did the same. Very well then, the aliens that are set to destroy Earth are called the Novas, the women you saw outside are called Pandoras, they have stigmata. He paused before he continued, that is reverse engineering that allows them to have superhuman abilities. Issei gave him a nod and said, I am able to create fire from within my body and cast it out, multiplying it to take on a large area. He looked at Deno Aoi and then continued, I can create wood of my body or anywhere I wish to an extent, it can take the shapes I desire it, even that of myself, and it can act and fight as me, though lesser in power. Issei had left out his eyes, the white Zetsu cells and the Madarasu, he did so because 1, he did not trust this scheming old man. 2, because he knew they did not need to know about it. To his credit, the old man had noticed the red-scaled arm of Issei during his fight with Chiffon. What of your arm, are you going to tell me that is some type of mutation? Issei shrugged and said, believe what you wish about it. He had said that so many times now many would think it was his signature saying. No, it was not, but they did not know that now, did they? You are very elusive, Mr. Haidu. To this Issei said, you are rather secretive, Mr. Aoi. The man at this point managed a smile. How is it that a child like yourself is able to keep pace with me? To this Issei replied, what do you want me here for? Now the real conversation could begin, the two of them were finished looking for weakness in the other. Deno found that this young man could counter anything he said. Issei on the other hand could not be overly bothered to manipulate this man. If he wanted to he would have activated his Sharingan. I'll cut to the chase because of the time we lost before, I wish for you to attend this facility known as West Genetics. To this Issei had to say only one thing, you do know that I'm a guy, right? To this Deno had to shake his head and say, we have a male populace as well, the women are Pandoras, the men are limiters. To this Issei had a wild guess and said, so what, they can control space and time, or can limit what a Pandora can do. To this Deno answered him, to an extent both, but they cancel the freezing the Nova do. Issei took note of the word freezing and said, so these Nova they can freeze the soldiers you send at them. To this Deno said, that is a simplified version of it, though you seem to be familiar with planning of battles. To this Issei said, I've had some training and a little experience, but that was some time ago now. Deno did not ask when, but he did ask, you have killed before another human, how old were you? At this Issei closed his eyes and recalled the men he had killed just prior to meeting both Hashirama and Tabarama. I was 8, I killed 12 men who had similar skills to my own, that was in another world. Deno raised an eyebrow. Issei had just told him that he had been to another world. Well, I will arrange for your transfer, now many of the students still know you, I will have you briefed about what goes on in the school. Issei then nodded and said, I have a feeling that this is not a normal school, I will let you know that this would be the second school that I have attended. Django was about to ask what he meant when Issei said it. If I trained to become as good as I am now, do you believe that I would have gone to school at all? Django now knew two things about Issei that others did not know. 1. Issei had yet to attend a full year of schooling, 2. Issei had some experience in war. As Issei left he said, just to let you know, if you even so much as try to sample my body, I will kill you. As he said this Issei flashed his Sharingan, he could tell that Django had noticed it before. On the other hand, Django's bodyguard leaped in between them to try to protect her charge. To this Issei gave a chuckle that Madara would have been proud of. So you wished to get in the way, you do know this, had I wished you two would both be dead. Issei said this in a calm and collect voice, stay away from my body, and I will be fine with you guys. Django gave him a nod, and Issei said I'll hold you to that. Then he left, leaving Django feeling rather unsure about this new ally he had attained. 1 hour later. Issei now stood outside the front of the school in the uniform that had been provided for him. The yellow blazer with blue tie, white shirt and blue pants was a perfect fit. Or rather Issei did not really care about if they fitted or not. At the gate was a woman, she was not the nun lady, so she must be one of the teachers here. Say you're the new student, right? She had green hair, wore a lab coat, so Issei had to think she was either in the science department. Issei gave he a nod and said that I am. She looked at him then said, what, why are you looking at me like that? Issei just shrugged and said, so can I come in or do I wait out here? He could tell that this woman was very laid back. To the point that he may just get on with her. No, I can't have that, well come now, I'll show you to your classroom. Issei looked at her and pointed to the bag on his back, can I find a place to put these first? She looked at him then said, oh yes, I almost forgot that you need to be shown to your room as well. Issei got the vibe that this lady was so laid back, Madara would have killed her for that trait alone. Okay, so where do we go? It was at this moment the girl who called herself Chiffon appeared. Oh Miss Fairchild, what are you doing here? The lab coat lady asked the squinting girl. I was asked by Sister Margaret to show Mr. Haidu to his dorm room and then his classroom. To that the lab coat lady gave a sigh of relief, thanks for this Miss Fairchild. But that same smile she said, no problem Miss Schmitz. The lab coat lady then left and Issei was left with the young lady he had beat up on just before. So you're not going to try to attack me for before. She held her smile and shook her head, oh no, I will not, you aren't my enemy right now. Issei still could feel the inhuman power around her, he knew she had held back during their fight and she knew he had as well. Why do I get the feeling that you volunteered to be my guide? To this the girl replied, oh I did not, it is not proper to do that, though I did wish to. Issei had to admit that she was at least honest. You really are a monster, you know, with your power you could have easily killed me. To this Issei nonchalantly said, you were holding back, so killing you there and then would have given me no real sense of satisfaction. She tilted her head and said, oh is that true, that seems to be a little strange don't you think? She tilted her head and Issei replied, I don't want to hear that from you Brock. She raised her eyebrow and said, who is Brock? To this Issei said, your world does not have Pokemon, what a sad world this is. She tilted her head to incline what that was, but Issei shook his head and said, if I were to explain it to you, you would not understand. She now raised an eyebrow to ask him why, but Issei said I won't tell you, so stop. She now looked at his bag and noted how light it was. What is in that bag? Your cloths and. To this Issei decided to go all out on her and said, 2 games that I treasure and desire to play until the end of time. She now laughed and said, so you are a little human after all. To this he said, I never said I wasn't, now did I? She giggled again, you seem different from when I fought you. To this Issei gave out a sigh and said, in battle you should only focus on that unless you have people under your command. She looked at him and then said, you seem to be very well learned in combat. In return to the compliment Issei said, as do you. She giggled again and said, oh stop it, you are just trying to butter me up. To this Issei rolled his eyes and said, don't overestimate yourself, it is a flaw that can prove to be your undoing. She now stopped at the room that would be his and said, I guess that is true, do you follow that rule? In response to her Issei said, believe what you wish to. She now smiled at him, despite the fact she had never stopped, and said, this is your room, I can give you some time to put down your belongings if you like. Issei shook his head and said, the only 2 places where I can lay my stuff is at home or with me, since the former's is impossible, I'll go with the latter. At this Chiffon had to think that he was a most curious person. Suit yourself, though you may regret it later. Issei gave a casual shrug and said, if I do that is my fault, now am I in your class? She gave him a nod and said, follow me, I'll show you where we are. Issei did as she had instructed and followed her to the classroom. Issei gave a little groan as he saw what was going on in the class. Chiffon turned her head and asked, what is this too complex for you? Issei shook his head, no, but I learned all this when I was 10, about the laws of physics, how to apply it in theory and in battle. She now giggled again and said, well you must have had a very good teacher then. Issei looked at her then sighed yet again. But he was also the most horrifying man you could meet. She took note of that and then said, well then shall we enter the class? Issei shrugged and said sure, but just let me sit near the back, I like it there. To this she asked, oh, I will see what I can do, may I ask why? Issei then casually said, because up the back corner you can see everything, also you are in the perfect position to counter any attack made on the room. She had to think, was he overcautious? Well, in any case we should enter now, Haidu. But that the two of them bother entered the classroom. Issei was now introducing himself to the class. The class itself had submitted 3 questions he had to answer. None of the included his name or age. This was kind of sad, so he said them anyway. My name is Issei Haidu. The first question was his hobbies, so he said them. My hobbies included sleeping, playing games made by Ki, as well as venting some energy every once in a while in battle. E10 looked at the second question. It was asking him about when he first feared for his life. The first time I experienced true fear was when I was face to face with 2 brother of the Senju. He did not bother to explain because they had not asked that. Now it was the last question, was a little more difficult. It had asked him to list his favorite food. Now food was something that Issei had not ever really cared for and just ate it with others because he was told to. My favorite food is just a means of sustenance to me, so I don't really care what I eat as long as I can eat it. Now both girls and boys in the class began to murmur at him. Issei in turn looked over to the teacher and asked, can I sit now? She gave him a nod and Issei found that there was a seat free up the back right hand corner. To his dismay though, it was right next to Chiffon. Issei wanted to give a sigh, but didn't he knew that she must have planned this. When Issei sat down, the student on the other side of Issei noted that Issei did not have any way of recording the lesson. Hey, I have some pen and paper, it is old-fashioned, but you can still take notes. Issei thanked her for this and said, my thanks, miss. He then listened, though not attentively, to the teacher. He casually scribbled down notes as the lesson went on, though none knew what they were really about. Chiffon, who was the only one seated next to him, stole a glance at his notes and was in shock. Issei, well, he had half closed his eyes, had taken down every detail of the lesson so far. The teacher saw this and said, Miss Fairchild, is there something interesting that Mr. Haidu has done, would you like to share it with the class? Issei at this point said, I don't see the harm. He shrugged and walked to the front of the class and gave the teacher his notes. His teacher almost dropped them and stared at him. What type of freak genius are you? To this Issei replied to her, the type who can fight multiple people in multiple locations, figure that out for yourself. He took back his notes of the ground and returned to sit next to Chiffon, who was still in shock at what he had done. You should try to sound a little less harsh when you speak. Issei turned to her and said, I'll keep that in mind. Issei at this moment noticed that the teacher had not continued the lesson. Well, now that is done, class, we can get on with the lesson. At this Issei gave a sigh of boredom. Chiffon noted this. Issei knew she had been sent to observe him just in case he was hostile to any in the school. Or was there another purpose? He was yet to find out. Lunch break came and Chiffon offered to take him to the cafeteria. Issei was in mid-yawn and had to stop to reply to her. No, I'll eat later, I think I ate like a few hours before I came here, or was it a while? Chiffon also noted that he had no real care to eat with people, or did he need to it? He said that he did, but he could be lying. Oh come on, it's free, you know. Issei sighed and said that was not the issue I had with it. Chiffon's friend, or rather the girl who sat next to her, raised her eyebrow and asked, oh, what is it then? To this Issei just said, I really don't care much for crowds. Chiffon noted this as well, he must have not liked many people hanging around him. Issei looked at her and said, you are taking note of all that I've said, haven't you? It was not a question, it was an accusation. But then, as if he no longer cared about it, which he did, he looked at the girl beside Chiffon. I say, we have not been introduced, I'm Issei. She smiled and said, oh, it's Ticey Fennel. Issei noted she must have been the one who was beside Chiffon when they confronted him outside the boat. He now raised his eyebrow at her and said, you don't hate me for what I did to your friend? To this she shook her head and said, no, I don't, you could have done a lot more, but you chose not to. It was at this point Issei thought if this was an anime, she'd be the naive friend character. He then looked at Chiffon and thought she'd be the alpha female heroine. Looked at himself and thought, I'd be that mysterious transfer student, so who is the main character? He did not bother with that train of though, it was too weird for him. The two of them had stayed put even after everyone else had left. He looked at them and said, you two aren't going to eat unless I come with you. With her forever smile, Chiffon said, yep, that's what we plan to do. Issei raised his eyebrow and said, I've barely met you both, why should I care about your well-being? She smiled then said to him, I see you're one who would rather let others suffer because he wishes to be alone. Issei gave a very loud sigh and said, fine, I'll come with you, but if you have something planned. Issei stopped and closed his eyes and smiled, then opened them to reveal his Manjikam Sharingan. You will beg me to kill you. Issei said this with a face that was akin to the one Madara had made when he had sensed Hashirama's chakra during the Fourth Shinobi World War. Both girls were taken aback by this and tried not to full-on take a step back when they say this face. But in a blink of an eye Issei's face had turned back to normal and he said, "What was there something on my face, are you two seeing things?" He gave them a rather mischievous smile and said, "Can we get on with it?" Chiffon had to note that the way he could go from scary monster to laid-back student was impressive. I'll have to note that either he has very whimsical mood swings or he is always like the latter and just hides it. But no more, Issei's deduction abilities to her were almost as good if he could read minds. "Are you two going to lead the way or should I just sit down here and sleep?" The two Pandora took this as their cue to leave and Issei followed them. He noticed that there were some Pandoras waiting for them outside. The first thing that came to Issei's mind when he saw them was either they wanted to fight him or to annoy him. Either way they were an annoyance and he did not really care for them. Placing his hand on the wall outside the classroom, Issei marked the room so he could teleport back here. Issei then noticed that the other girls were backing off when they saw Chiffon. Issei asked Issei what's the deal with that, why are they all backing off when she approaches them? To this Issei replied, well, she is the unmatched smiling monster. As if that explained it, Issei could see the genuine fear that the other girls held of Chiffon. Issei then said to Issei, "Why do I get the feeling you were sent to make sure I did not kill someone?" Issei did not reply, but she did look away when he said this to him was confirmation. He gave out a small sigh as they left that group of girls behind. "Are they anyone I should look out for?" To this Chiffon replied, "Oh, you don't need to worry about them, after all if you beat me, they should be nothing to you." Issei to this just said, "If that is what you believe then you keep believing." She looked at him, she was clearly annoyed by how much he answered with the "believe what you wish." He looked at her and asked as they got in line at the cafeteria, "Do you not like it, how I let you choose what to take out of what I say?" To this Chiffon was honest enough to say, "No, I don't like it, but then again you are entitled to speak that way." Issei knew that she wanted to tell him to just give a normal answer already, but she also knew he was probably not going to. Or rather she wanted to tell him where to stick it, but restrained. There were people whispering all around them, Issei could hear them despite this and was about to tune out when he heard. Did the unmatched smiling monster find her mate in another monster? Issei was not sure if Chiffon had heard it as well, but he turned and asked Issei, "Can you hold my spot for me?" Issei looked a little confused and asked, "Hey, why, do you need to go to the bathroom?" To this Issei said, "Oh, never mind, let them talk like that then." Issei stared at him, she had not heard what he had. Though Chiffon confirmed that she did when she said, "I believe that Mr. Haidu heard does not like the rumor that he and I are a couple." To this Issei shrugged and said, "I do believe that what they are saying is false, I have enough rumors about me back at home, thank you." To this Issei took an interest and asked, "Oh really, like what?" To this Issei turned to her and said, "Like I'll tell you." Chiffon gave a small laugh and ordered a burger from Burger Queen. Issei did not know what to make of it. Not to be rude, but what the heck is this? Issei had not really ever seen a burger like this before. To this Issei blinked and then said, "Wait, you don't know what a burger is?" Issei then said, "I know what it is, I think I read about it once." Now everyone in the line turned to look at him as if he had been living under a rock for the last 50 plus years. "What type of sad childhood did you have, Haidu?" To this Issei said, "One that made me. At this point everyone was covering their mouth as if to hold in their laughter. Though this Issei gave a very loud say and spoke in a soft voice that like Madara's carried through the entire area. "If you are going to laugh, do it openly, I really don't care." Chiffon took note of this action as well, he did have some issues. But then again she knew he could say the same of her. Taking a seat around a single table, Issei noted that the two Pandoras were staring at him. "What, you don't really expect me to eat this thing?" Issei and Chiffon both gave a small giggle and said, "You're such a fussy eater, weren't you taught to eat well?" Issei found it a little weird how the two of them could speak in sync. "Issei, you two really want me to eat, don't you? I would suspect that you two have either have an ulterior motive or you just want to see me eat this." To this they both just gave him a giggle, it was a little annoying. Issei slowly lifted the burger in his hands and took a bite of it, to him it might as well have been cardboard. But to humor those around him he decided to finish it, though he did this as slowly as possible. He also noticed that the time was ticking by, time that would be needed to get to the next class. By the time he had finished there was about a minute left to return to the classroom and almost everyone else was gone. "Sheesh, you sure took your time there, what is with you, why did it take you 20 minutes to eat a single burger?" Issei said this, she was visibly annoyed. Chiffon with her smile still on her face tilted her head and said, "Oh yes, Issei, your record of not being late is about to be broken." Issei was unable to tell if she was mocking her friend or just stating it to her. To this Issei raised his hands and said, "Grab my shoulders." By now they were the only people left other than the staff of the cafeteria. Both of them were about to ask why when he said if you don't wish to then I will leave you behind. They both looked at each other, then they each grabbed a shoulder and held on. Some sort of blur occurred that made the two Pandora feel nauseous. But they both shook their heads, and they were now in the doorway of the clash room. Issei opened her mouth to ask how but she placed a finger over it and said trade secret. He then walked and took the same seat up the right-hand corner of the room. Issei noticed that none of the other students had noticed him walk in. To the point where another Pandora was in the seat Chiffon had been in. I hear that Chiffon has her sights on him. Issei was listening in on this girl's and two others' conversation. I hear that he beat her down in front of everyone with a smile just like hers. I heard that he made Chiffon his and that she submitted to him. Another joined in and said oh I heard that he and the unmatched smiling monster shared a kiss in the cafeteria. Thank the Lord that another girl with blonde hair rebuked this comment. Don't be stupid Arnett, that would be just a foolish rumor someone made up. She then went on to say if the rumors around him are true, then you should not speak anything that may offend him. The redhead nodded and so did the two white heads, one had Corsican the other was dark. Issei at this point had hidden himself right behind the blonde-haired girl who had told the rest to shut up. Releasing the jutsu he was using he said, you seem to possess a rather high intelligence, not that any of you are not intelligent. All of them froze in place when he said this, but he casually sat back down at his seat to the side of the blondes. He then turned his head and asked why are you all looking at me, I sat her last time. It was the smiling Chiffon to the rescue for them who said well let me introduce you, hi do this is Elizabeth Mabley, the redhead is Arnett Macmillan, those two are Ada Simmons and Creo Brand. Issei just shrugged and said pleased to meet you. In return the four of them tried to make their best smiles and said the pleasure is ours. To this Issei turned his head back to the front of the class and said lying is bad for your soul only do so when you need to or when you can fool someone. He knew he did not have to say both options are beyond you. Chiffon took the seat in front of him that was free. Just how many more of these classes will I have to take? I am defiantly going to send a wood clone to class so I can just explore a bit alone. Issei was staring blankly at the board for about 10 minutes before he teacher caught on. I say there Mr. Haidu was it, can you tell me the last few facts about Nova that I stated? Issei at the moment gave a yawn and said. They come in different shapes as well as they can freezing and blast things. The very disinterested way he said it could have put off anyone, but then he said, due to the nature of their attacks, one could speculate that they are indeed sentient and are evolving to fight us. Now the teacher wanted to tell him that was not possible, but she knew that it could be. What made you come to that conclusion? Issei gave another yawn and said well if you think of it, no attack has been exactly the same, yeah they fight till they are destroyed or they reach their limit. But from what you've said they have been ever so slightly changing tactics. She did not know what to say to that. She looked at Issei for a good minute before he said are you done? She shook her head and then continued on with the lesson. Issei was aware that his every move was being watched by both Chiffon and Taisi. But he also knew that Gengo Aoi must have had some other way of keeping an eye on him. He also knew what he had said was sending a message. Not a shock revelation, but one that Gengo must have seen in and been speculating. Issei did not know to the full extent of how right he was, Gengo was sitting at a desk inside. He was watching the target of interest on camera and knew now that the boy knew he was watching him. So he is able to pick that up from a simple lesson, it would seem that whoever taught him very well. Gengo now turned away from the recording to his personal bodyguard. Tsunali, what can you tell me of his prowess? His bodyguard shook her head and said he is a wolf wearing the mask of the sheep. Gengo raised his eyebrow then said what do you mean by that? Tsunali knew full well that he knew what she meant he wanted her to say it to him. It would be easy for him to be what I though both you and I were once a sociopath. Gengo shook his head no his true character he is able to hide a little too well, though from the way he threatens people, I would not be surprised if he is a sociopath. She had to agree with him there, Issei Haidu was a rather dangerous character. At the end of classes for the day Issei gave a rather large yawn, while keeping both eyes open. Well that is done, I guess saving the world would be child's play in comparison to this. Issei who by this time was familiar enough with him to know he would not bite her head off for talking to him asked. You really don't like school do you? In return Issei said oh I have nothing against learning, just to be still for so long when I am not sleep can be annoying. Issei had to admit if he was some type of hero, he would be rather bored with simple classes, not to mention that he was really good at them. Issei stood up and began to make his way to where he recalled his dorm was. I should have marked my room, damn it. He also noticed that Chiffon and Taisi were not following him well the good cop bad cop patrol is not onto me, so I think I can stomach the walk. Because of his training with Madara he was able to walk around without many people noticing him. He heard again the rumors about him that were circulating the campus. This time he did not make a move on any who were speaking, he just passed them by as if he was not there at all. I heard that he was seen with the unmatched smiling monster, are they a pair? I believe he has the hots for Issei, he is always so polite to her. I heard that he spoke with Elizabeth and her gang, they were talking about him, and he appeared out of thin air behind them. Wait, he can do that, can he do that to us? Issei would have chuckled, but they would have seen him screamed and caused a scene, so he held it back. It was not that he would not have liked to seen them scream, but he rather not have to explain why they were screaming to anyone. The next conversation that he found was a group of guys that were talking about him. You hear there is a new guy on campus, he is also very strong. But no way a limiter can beat a Pandora, there is no way that's true. I heard since the fight that Chiffon has her claws in him, so he will become her limiter. What if he was able to beat her? Imagine if they teamed up, they would be the power couple of West Genetics. I thought that the third years would take him, hey did you hear he was able to get from the cafeteria to his classroom in like a minute? But there's nowhere that can be right. At this moment Issei decided to break his silence and have a little fun. I think it's right, I was trained in the art of Kaioken. It was at this, one of the boys asked Kaioken. Issei nodded and said Kaioken. It took the guys about 10 seconds for to realize they were talking to Issei. There, we did not know you were there, how long have you been there for Haidu? To this Issei shrugged and said since one of you said you here. It was at this point that they all could not believe what they had just said. We are very sorry Haidu, we did not mean to sound disrespectful to you or what you can do. They sounded rather fearful for their lives. Issei gave a very loud sigh and said I killed because either they are trying to kill me or they have betrayed my trust or disgust me. He now turned his back to him and waved idle chatter like this is not something I would spill blood over. As he walked away he heard one of the limiters say man he is rather nice, well to us at least. Issei in his mind thought I'd rather not have people being friendly with me, but then again, I don't want them jumping if I say hello. It was true, both fear and respect had their uses, but so did kindness. Madara had proven that to him some time ago. Issei arrived at the door to his room and opened it, he found the Jingo Aoi and his guard were there sitting at a table. It seems that you have adjusted well to your surroundings, Issei Haidu. Issei looked at him and said was it you who asked those two to follow me? Dengo saw no real advantage in lying and said no, it was not. Issei then took a seat and gestured to the seat beside Jengo for his guard to sit. When she refused Issei kindly said if you wish to stand, then do it out there not in here, you may be a bodyguard, but to me status and occupation mean nothing. She looked to Jengo who said act for yourself, he is telling you to do so. I take it this is not for show, and you have something that you wish to speak with me about. Jengo gave him a nod and said today you made a comment that the Nova may be sentient. He did not need to say another word, Issei could see that he believed this too. I just said that, though it can be noted that there is some sort of pattern to their attacks. He then tilted his head and looked at the woman in the room. One can say they are mindless pawns, but then again a pawn needs a hand that can move it. He leaned his head back and now looked at the ceiling, that much is obvious. Jengo gave his guard a nod and she pushed a file over to Issei. This file is a sign of trust between us, not the world, the two of us that we are allies. Issei looked at Jengo and said you are a God-fearing man aren't you? To this Jengo just said what if I am, is that bad? Issei shook his head and said what I was taught, what the one who taught me came to understand is. He paused and waited for them to try and guess what he was going to say. When they did not he continued is that the ends no matter how sweet they are cannot justify the means. Jengo nodded and said I am a firm believer of that, the power of the Pandoras is only borrowed, a blessing from God I would say. In return Issei said your belief and faith is your own, what is in that file, keep it to yourself. Jengo looked at him and said you don't trust me or you don't want my trust. To this Issei shook his head, it will be another thing I will have to hide from prying eyes, if you did not send those two to watch me then someone else did. Jengo got what he was trying to say I see, so you believe others will try to use this. Issei shook his head and said no, I believe the best kind of ally is the one your enemies don't know about. Jengo could not help but smile about that, it meant that Issei was willing to align himself with him. It also meant that Issei could act where he could not, and he could do the same. Jengo then asked Issei, why would you ally yourself with me? To this Issei just said you have shown that you are a very intelligent man, more so than myself, I would rather not make you an enemy. It was fair to say that Jengo could say the same of him. Jengo then offered his hand and Issei took it, this was the sign of their alliance. I don't know if you are very foolish or a genius. Issei replied, you could say that I may do that on purpose. Jengo laughed as he and Issei both let go, you are a cunning child. I would like a favor from you, if you could stop all these rumors about me being a monster that would be good. Jengo gave him a nod and said in return I would ask that you refrain from any violence, though if you are attacked you should defend yourself, just don't overdo it. Issei gave him a nod. It was acceptable if Django filled his part, he would have no real reason to hit someone in any case. He looked at Django's guard and said, I did not catch your name. She at first did not reply due to the shock of being included. I am Sunali. Before the two of them left, Sunali did ask him, your eyes flashed red before, what is that? Issei in turn gave a shrug and said, it allows me to see things more clearly. Now she was not capable of understanding that, but Django was. Eyes that can enhance one in battle or anywhere, that is an ability that Pandoras would crave. Issei said as they left the room, I would be cautious. I know that men in power, when their power is threatened, are not usually the forgiving type. Django knew what he was saying and noted it. Issei Haidu, just what type of monster are you? After they left, Issei went and lay down on the bed. He knew it would be some time before dinner was going to happen, not that he really needed to eat. At this moment Issei took off his shirt and gave a very loud sigh. One could see the white Zetsu cells in his torso quite clearly if they wanted to. Issei then began to stretch his arms and legs. He heard a knock on his door and on instinct said come in. He then wished he didn't as he saw the door open. Standing in front of him were three young women. Is there anything I can do for you three, or are you just going to stand there and stare at me? He had no real idea of what was to come next, he even did not know who they were or why they had come to him. Within Issei's room. It took about a second for Issei to notice that they were giving off a rather hostile killing intent and had a large amount of bloodlust in their eyes. Also on a side note, he was able to see that they were a bit older than the girls of this school, which meant that they were not students here. Yet they wore the uniform, so only one word came to Issei's mind when he saw them. Amateurs. It was at this point that one of them was about to charge him when Issei used his Flying Thunder God technique to teleport himself and his bag out of there. He forgot to choose a specific location for his technique and instead just jumped to the furthest mark he had made. At Issei's present location. Though this was the classroom, to his dismay it was not. His hand was upon an object that was rather soft, has closed his eyes and gave a very loud sigh as he knew where he was. Well, he did not know where he was, rather he knew who he was with. A very familiar voice sounded, not to be rude, but I did not think you saw me this way. As of this moment Issei was in the room with Chiffon as she was beginning to undress. Issei gave her a shrug and bowed his head. I apologize, I did not mean to teleport, if you permit I will take your leave. Issei was about to move away when she caught his arm. It was now clear to him that she was not going to just let him go. He turned to look at her and she still had the smile of hers on her face. Why won't you let me go? She just smiled at him and placed a finger to her lips. Issei did not know why she wanted him to be silent. Then she pointed to the closet behind her. Issei did not know why. He decided to comply and went into the closet, but just in case it was a trap he used the camouflage jutsu to hide himself. As soon as he did this, a rather authoritative lady entered Chiffon's room. I have received a report that Issei Haidu is not in his room. Chiffon, who was just changing, looked at her and gave her a playful shrug. I don't see why you would come to me about this, it is not as if I would know where he is. At this the woman gave a grunt and said, it would not be wise to just play with us, Ms. Fairchild. She looked at Chiffon. Issei could feel the amount of hatred that was leaking of her. I do not intend to play with those who serve Chevalier, after all are we not the ones who protect the world? Issei knew why Chiffon wanted him hidden, it was so he could learn some information about those who were watching him. Watch your tone, brat, you may be strong, but even you are not invincible. To this Chiffon gave a little giggle and said, if that is all, may I continue to get dressed? The woman now shook her head at Chiffon and said, you may, but I suggest that you pick up your game, he is a threat and may be a creation of Django Aoi for all we know. To this Chiffon tilted her head and said, are you suggesting that the good doctor has hidden something from you? She was clearly annoyed by this and said, what your tone, Ms. Fairchild, we are not to be played with. Chiffon could not help but giggle and say, well, if you say so, but I would have you know that if I could not beat him, what hope you the Pandoras who sent have. The woman did not answer her, but then saw that she had wasted enough time here. I am done, here you must continue to do your duty and report all his activities to us. To this Chiffon added something that Issei did not know she knew. Shall I add what games he plays to the list? The two he had with him, he seems to prize greatly. The lady gave out a disgusted sigh and said, keep the data that you give us strictly based on his behavior and abilities, nothing about his personal hobbies is necessary. Issei wanted to laugh and call this woman stupid, but he had the feeling that she was not the head and took orders from another, so that person was really stupid. If I wanted to know my enemy, I'd find out what are their hobbies and desires first, that way I can exploit them. The lady left the room and Issei released his jutsu. He had to admit that Chiffon had done him a service. As with all things, he knew that this service was not free. She put on a dress and said, you can come out now, she is gone, but you already know that, don't you? Issei in turn came out of the closet and gave her a nod. What is it that you want in return for this? She looked at him and for the first time she did not smile and raised her eyebrow. No thanks Chiffon for that, no thank you for helping me though you're meant to be on their side. To this Issei said actions speak louder than words, to give my thanks through words would be hollow and false, I'd rather repay you with actions. Chiffon's smile returned and she said in that case could you marry me and become mine, I would like to have 2 children at least, 1 boy and 1 girl. To this Issei calmly said that is not within my power at this point in time. She still wore her smile and said oh, then it was worth finding out that even you take orders from someone. Issei sighed and realized that he had just been had, though he had only revealed that he was not free for such things. Is there anything else you wanted beside that? To this Chiffon gave a giggle and said I want you to help me become student council president. Images of Sona flashed through his mind and he gave a very heavy sigh. You have one of those here as well? Chiffon tilted her head and then asked what do you mean by that? Issei in turn said on second thought, I'd rather not say, okay, how would I help you go about that? To this Chiffon raised an eyebrow keeping her smile and said well I can challenge the current president to a fight, but if I do that I would be hated and feared. Issei at this moment raised his own eyebrow. So what you want me to do is go and kill or badly injure all of them and declare myself for you the next student council president. For the first time she looked a little shocked by this. What no, I don't want that. Issei at that moment shrugged and said then how else are you meant to get there, oh wait you're launching a campaign not a mission. To this Chiffon's smile took on a different meaning. Oh yes, that is what I intend to do, you wanted a quick fix didn't? To this Issei sighed not that I hate campaigns, but they take up a lot of time and are really bothersome. She titled her head to the side and asked you like to do things the quick and easy way. To this Issei gave a sigh and said if there is no real long-term gain then yes, little work for short-lived results. Chiffon did not know if he was either an act or he was really lazy. So what now, you'll contact me when you need my help. Issei was scratching the back of his neck he was pondering 2 things. I should either just kill her now and save myself the bother or I should help up until I am done with her. He could tell she was unable to guess he was thinking this, he acted laid back at the moment. Well then, I would like you to first befriend Elizabeth Mabley, her group would be valuable allies to have and so would her family. Issei put his hand up and then said not to burst your bubble but I don't make friends easily. She smiled and said learn how to, there is a party that is coming up, so why don't you attend? Issei gave a slight groan, it was not that he hated such things, but he really did not like anyone here. Oh I know, you can impress everyone at the party. Issei at this moment raised his eyebrow and asked not to be rude by what can I do, I mean, I don't care if people fear me, but if it hinders me I do care. Chiffon pondered what he said for a moment and then said so you would not mind if people hate or fear you normally, but since you are sent here to do something you believe it will hinder what you have been sent to do. Issei gave a sigh and said in a way yes that is it, but in a way what you said is not what I meant. Chiffon at this moment gave a very loud sigh, you are rather hopeless aren't you, I mean what type of person were you? She now turned her head to look at her door, but when she looked back Issei was gone. She gave a sigh again he could have at least said he was going. She then had to wonder how his teleportation worked. The classroom. Issei had returned to his classroom, he did not know if those women were still at his room and he did not really want to know if they were. If need to I'll just hide myself with camouflage jutsu and sneak in, or maybe I would do that and just sleep out. He really did not care for any classes so he could in theory sleep in if he was undiscovered. Oh great that's right I got to help little Miss Smile as well, crap why can't these aliens or whatever pop up so I can kill them already. It was true he was getting a little annoyed with this world, so far it sucked it really sucked. I wonder what Madara would think of this world, other than why can't men fight against a threat as well. He now began to walk away from his classroom as he noticed that he was being watched, he did not know if it was because he had just appeared out of thin air. Or if they were sent by someone to spy on him. He decided to dismiss it and head outside, if he could remember the way. I wonder can I find my way out of here, damn it I wish I had paid more attention now, never mind I'll just create a wood clone to find the path for me. Then he though maybe I shouldn't draw so much attention to myself, will I have done so already? Issei pondered why he was pondering such a thing when he felt the same stare at his back as he had felt before. Rolling his eyes Issei turned on his heel and began to walk back to his room. Well on the bright side, they might be gone now. He then pondered if he would have to fight them well if they do attack me and look in my eyes, well then it's their own fault then. Issei was about to enter the boys' dorm when 3 limiters blocked his way. At first he thought it was because they were just a little tired, so he gave them the benefit of the doubt. But when they decided to bar his path he was a little less amused. What is your problem, you guys look a little better than zombies without free will. It was at this point that Issei heard footsteps behind him. Turning around he saw Pandora around his age with blue hair. There wasn't a feature of her that Issei liked, her eyes were filled with greed and lust, her very body had the odor of many young men. Not to mention that her eyes held about no kindness in them at all. Not that Issei's did all the time, but even he could be kind. "Oh, I see I have you, let me introduce myself, I am the liberator of virtue." Before she could finish, Issei said for her, "You must be new girl at the strip club, God, why do I run into weird people, I don't even know if this place has one of those." Issei could see that she was annoyed by this, now he only needed her to attack him. "She seems like an indecent excuse for a woman, I wonder are these three hers, wow she's a slut." Issei at this point knew he was not allowed to fight unless attacked, but he could use that on her. "I find what you said rude and I was going to invite you to become my limiter." She said that as if he should be grateful. Instead, Issei found a much easier way to close of this argument. "Not to be rude, but Ms. Fairchild asked me before you and if she did not succeed how can you?" A lie but not a big one, well how would this play out? He thought to himself. She laughed at that. "I have more body assets than her, you know you want my body." She tried to make herself look as seductive as she could. She did not know it, but her attitude was similar to that of a guy that Issei had left a devil vegetable, his name was Riser Phoenix. "Sorry I can't really see you as a woman, you remind too much of a guy." He had left of most of the information on purpose to goad her into reacting to him. She was getting goaded, but she tried to keep her composure all the same. "What could you possibly mean by that, my body is far too gorgeous to be that of a man." To this Issei rolled his eyes and said, "If that is what you believe then so be it." At that moment he turned his back on her and was about to walk away when she caught his shoulder. "You rude little brat, what do you think you are doing?" She had lost her cool as now was about to punch him when she made a fatal error that she did not know. The blue-haired Miyabi Kanazuki was about to land her blow on this ignorant fool's face when the world around her went dark. She felt nothing in her hands and saw that she was now alone in darkness. "What the hell?" She said this as she spun around, as she did so she felt part of her body get sliced by something. She screamed in pain as she tried to feel for the wound, the sensation of blood flowing from her was causing her to panic. Yet she could find no cut on her body, yet the pain was there nonetheless. "It has been a while since I have done this, I think I will enjoy the time here." Issei's voice echoed out through the darkness as Miyabi fell to the ground clutching her body. She felt cold, she felt hot, she felt pain, all of it, her body was confused. She tried to call out to her limiters, but she was unable to say a word. "Oh, what was that, liberator of virtue, are you afraid? But I have not even begun the fun yet." Wicked laughter now echoed in the vast void that she was in, she did not know what to feel other than fear for her life. "Oh, don't look like that, you gorgeous face is ruined by it." His tone was mocking, and she could feel the malice within it. She tried to speak again, but found that she was unable to. "I don't recall saying you could speak." In an instant she felt her arms and legs being bound to something. She was tied to some type of X, though she did not know how. To add to it, her mouth was gagged, and she was unable to even move any part of her body other than her neck. Issei appeared out of the void to her, he had a smile upon his face, it was not a nice smile, it was a smile that a cat made right before it played with a mouse. "I see you have made yourself comfortable, I hope you like the reservations you booked, I mean you did ask for this." Miyabi did not know what he was saying, she never had asked for this, to be in some strange world like this at his mercy, this was not what she had wanted. He looked her in the eye, and she shuddered and turned, his eyes to her were that of Satan. "Miyabi Kanazuki, is that your name? It suits you, well not that I know about that." She now watched in horror as Issei's face became void of all emotion, and he drew a small tent out of nowhere. "To go about and ask for limiters so freely, you have no shame, no dignity." She was unable to answer, and she opened her eyes to come meet his own. "I will let you enjoy yourself like this for say 24 hours. She could not even try to object as she saw a sun slowly rising behind him. At this point Issei tilted his head and said, "So let's begin." The smile he had on his face could rival that of chiffon, the monster behind the smile was just waiting to have its fun, waiting for its chance to be unleashed. Miyabi felt the sting of his blade as it slowly was poked into her flesh. But he did not take it out, no, Issei himself needed to burn of some steam, and he figured she deserved this. He slowly began to pull down upon his tent. Miyabi would have screamed if she could, the pain caused tears in her eyes, her precious body was being tarnished. After about 30 seconds of that, Issei said, "It takes a whole minute for me to finish one of these strokes." He then stopped smiling and raised one eyebrow and asked, "Can you survive 1439 more?" Issei did not even wait, he just got straight back into it. Miyabi felt stroke after stroke, her mind should have blanked out, but she seemed unable to do this. "Oh, you must be wondering why you have not fainted, it has been 120 strokes." He laughed and then explained it to her, "In this world I am God, it bends to my will, and no matter what you do it will be for naught." There was a certain shine in his red eyes that she could see when he said this. He was enjoying this. All of it from the fact that she was in pain to where she was in no position to do anything about it. He laughed and continued with the strokes. Only what 1319 to go. Issei said this as he finished another stroke. I wonder what will happen. Will your body shut down? Will your brain die due to the pain? There was a certain part of the smile on his face that said let's find out. And so he continued with this. Yabi, unable to faint, unable to know how he knew her name, unable to do anything, was able to survive all 1440 strokes. The sun was rising again. To her, she had thought she had done it, she had survived. At this point Issei gave her a very loud laugh and said, well done, you have survived 1440 strokes, I have to congratulate you. He left out the word all on purpose. Just to let you know that you have exactly 23 hours, 59 minutes and 59 and 9/10 of a second to go. Issei saw the reaction to this and knew it was worth it. That face that all made when they learned that time had not really passed at all. In truth, to begin with, if you go by the real world's time, you have to survive 124,416,000 strokes, so that leave only 124,414,560 to go. The look of pure horror on her face was more than enough to satisfy the urge to torture that was lingering in Issei. This is my world, my rules and my punishment, here I am God. He had revealed nothing about Tsukiyomi to her it could all be a nightmare. But in reality. But in the real world she had collapsed to the ground after a second of eye contact with him. Issei was sure that he had hit his line of sight from any cameras well enough as he hit his Sharingan again. Yabi, as he learned from within, Tsukiyomi in her mind was a rather sick individual. Now her three limiters rushed to her side. Issei did not wish to fight them, they were just fools who were being used by her. Foolish boys, to think they could get luck. Issei then walked by them and began to walk down the boys' dormitory to his room. I must get a compute and get Clannad to work on it. If I have to be stuck with such people, I might as well enjoy myself when I can. He opened the door to his room to find it empty, as if it had been left untouched. He looked over at the contents of his bag and found that they had touched it. Well, as long as they did not take away Clannad, I'm fine with that. He then felt as if he was being watched. Damn, they must have set up cameras in my room, although I'm fine with that, for now. It was not that he did not care, rather he did not see the point to make a fuss over such a thing. I can take care of it at a later date, for now I need to get a few allies I can trust. That crosses off Django right away. Issei could tell that the man had very good intentions, but that alone is not enough. He would just as easily use and then throw aside any that would be of no more use to him. Issei had to frown at that. He tended not to rely on people, and rather on himself. If you place your trust in others, they can fail you. If you don't, your only one at fault is you. At this point Issei went and lay down upon his bed. It was around 4 to 5 in the afternoon. I could so go a nap right now, but let me put a precaution in place first. At this Issei made a hand sign and created little seeds that he scattered in his room. Should any enter, I will know, though why I even bother is beyond me. He knew why he did. There was no one in this world yet who he could trust, and his time that Madara had made him spend in that world had made us cautious. Chiffon Fairchild, why do I get this uneasy feeling that you are not who you say you are? His mind came back to the feeling he got around Chiffon. He knew she could not be a normal human. Then again, the same could be said of himself, but there was a difference. He felt like he was talking to a grown woman in a childlike state of mind and body. He, on the other hand, was the age he claimed to be and was also mentally just a little older than his age. Issei knew even he had his childish moments, he was rather fond of them. It was a reminder to him that he was indeed human. That in itself was a luxury at this time he could afford. End of the part 1. So how was this story? I hope you like it. And if you like it, share this story with your friends and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay, it's time for me to go. Bye bye.